Knowing that I could be assassinated at any moment, of any time, I feel it's important that some people know my thoughts. I stood for more than just a candidate. I have never considered myself a candidate. I have always considered myself part of a movement, part of a candidacy. I wish I had time to explain everything I did. Almost everything was done in the eyes of the gay movement.
Harvey Milk was one of the first elected openly gay officials in the country, elected to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors in 1977. His election gave hope to the gay rights movement and to other minorities in San Francisco. He broke down the barrier for homosexual politicians and gave a face to the movement. Harvey Milk was born on May 22, 1930 in Long Island, New York. As a child, Milk was fun and athletic. He came to terms with his homosexuality when he was 14, however, he kept his homosexuality a secret. After high school, Milk joined the Navy. He received a dishonorable discharge when it was revealed that he was gay, showing the injustice against homosexuals. After this, he eventually moved to New York in 1956. As Milk tried to find a place in the world, the gay rights movement in the country was growing.
Well, the 70s was a really exciting time for the LGBT movement. That was really when the movement kind of exploded onto the scene in the wake of the Stonewall Rebellion in June of 1969.
The Stonewall riots occurred due to police violence and discrimination, especially involving police raids on gay bars. This discrimination was widespread throughout the country. In spite of these obstacles, San Francisco became a mecca for gay men and women, specifically an area of San Francisco called the Castro. Like hundreds of gay men, Milk and his partner traveled from New York to San Francisco, opening a camera store, Castro Camera. This camera store would eventually become the political epicenter for Milk's crusade. Milk became involved in local politics and began to call himself the mayor of Castro Street, and decided to make his position more official in 1973 by running for the Board of Supervisors. In his first election, Harvey ran without the support of many gay leaders and moderate liberals. He was considered too unprofessional and outspoken, and thus a liability to the carefully built-up gay movement in the city. During his campaign, liberal leaders made sure he had no endorsements. However, Milk came in 10th out of 32 candidates, receiving 17,000 votes in total. In his first campaign, Milk proved to the city that the gay vote was present and strong. 2 weeks after his first election, Milk cut off his hair and reformed his lifestyle. In order to get more support for his next election, he wanted to make connections with other demographics in San Francisco. He helped conservative union members remove Coors beer from gay bars, showing that his campaign encompassed more than gay rights. To get more popularity, he encouraged the press to follow the strike.
We found out that he got the Coors beer out of all of the gay bars in San Francisco. And this Coors beer boycott, which Labor's been trying to do throughout the United States, especially in San Francisco, Labor Town, really hadn't been too successful.
And so what he knew he had to do in order to win his political campaign was to organize a coalition of people and to make certain kinds of promises to groups of people outside of the LGBT community, as well as to people within the community who really saw him as their leader and their representative. So he developed a kind of political strategy of organizing at the grassroots, bringing different kinds of people together in order to amass political power. And so I think that's a kind of turning point.
In 1977, after 3 years of campaigning, Harvey Milk was elected to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. He joined an incredibly diverse group of supervisors. His election was made more possible by the new district and voting regulations passed by San Francisco.
What I'm going to do is call upon the gay community to come out now. Keep the education going. Keep talking one-to-one. Talk to your relatives, your friends, your family, so that you can find out about gay people and shatter the myths once and for all so we can live in harmony.
So this was an exciting time, but he was really a trailblazer in that way. He was one of the first LGBT elected officials in the country. The 70s was really the first time where you saw not only the movement emerge in such a visible way, but also political leaders emerging out of the movement, ultimately running for office.
And it was clear what Harvey Milk represented on that board. He represented change. He was different. He was different from the conservative majority on the Board of Supervisors.
The San Francisco Board of Supervisors was the governing body of the city with the ability to pass regulations. Milk was now able to be the voice in City Hall for all the minorities.
He wasn't just an activist, he was that too, but he was someone who also ran for office and then ultimately successfully ran for office. So that was a turning point in the sense that his political career marked a turning point where people really felt like there was an imperative, and Milk really felt this, he talked very passionately about this, the need for openly gay and lesbian people to run for office, to be part of the political system.
Before Harvey was elected, I can remember looking at City Hall and feeling like that was not my place. I didn't belong there, I wasn't welcome there, I didn't feel comfortable there. And the people who were on the Board of Supervisors were names you read about in the newspaper, not people you would expect to see in the grocery store or much less have a conversation with on a personal or human level. And Harvey was really part of changing all that.
Once Milk was in office, he quickly started working on issues that were important for him and for the city. He and Mayor Moscone passed the gay ordinance, the most powerful in the country, which protected homosexuals in the workplace from bigotry and discrimination. Everyone on the San Francisco Board of Supervisors voted to pass this ordinance except for Dan White.
What the gay rights ordinance in San Francisco, the main focus is to prevent the people who are already employed, who are gay, who, if they want to come out and break down the stereotypes, prevents them from being fired.
The new increase in gay rights legislation around the country created an opponent in the evangelical Christian movement. Led by former Miss America Anita Bryant and the Save Our Children campaign, they tried to repeal new legislation protecting gay rights. Bryant organized movements to repeal pro-gay laws in several cities including Dade County, Florida, St. Paul, Minnesota, Wichita, Kansas, and Eugene, Oregon. Milk organized marches to protest her movement. The opposition of the evangelical movement gave Milk an opponent to fight against, bringing him more media coverage.
Well, Anita's our ally. Quite honestly, she's the #1 recruiter to the gay lifestyle.
The fight for gay rights then became centered in California with John Briggs's Proposition 6, a bill that would fire all teachers accused of being gay. Anita Bryant put her support behind Briggs. To fight this bill, Milk used the same grassroots techniques that he had used during his election to provide enough support to veto the ballot question. Milk encouraged gays and lesbians to come out, knowing that if people knew just one gay person, they would be likely to vote no on Proposition 6. Harvey and his supporters were able to generate enough support that the Briggs initiative failed. It was the first failure for Anita Bryant's anti-gay crusade. The media attention that Harvey Milk received helped give his elected status national attention. Around the country, people began to see that San Francisco was leading the gay rights movement. And then, tragedy struck.
President of the Board of Supervisors, it's my duty to make this announcement. Both Mayor Moscone and Supervisor Harvey Milk have been shot and killed. The suspect is Supervisor Dan White.
Dan White, the only supervisor on the Board of Supervisors that had voted against the gay rights ordinance, had shot Milk and Moscone in a fit of rage. White had recently resigned from his position, citing financial insecurity. White then decided he wanted his job back and had learned that Moscone would not reappoint him. He shot the mayor first at City Hall and then calmly walked into Harvey Milk's office, shooting him 5 times. The city reacted with shock. Thousands of people came out to express their sorrow at the loss of an icon and marched from Castro Street to City Hall in a candlelit vigil. The parade was several miles long. Though there was evidence and the murder was obviously premeditated, at White's trial, his defense lawyers argued that he acted irrationally from eating too much junk food, the so-called Twinkie defense, and was only convicted of voluntary manslaughter. Milk and Moscone's supporters quickly turned from peaceful to violent at the close of the trial of Dan White, causing the White Night riots. After his death, Milk's friends took his ashes out to sea. All around the country, people mourned his assassination and would immortalize him in the quest for gay rights. Using grassroots techniques, Milk had been elected on a minority-based platform, and his legacy would encourage the election of other gay and minority leaders in the future.
His name was Harvey Milk, and he was here to recruit us, all of us, to join a movement and change a nation. For much of his early life, he had silenced himself. In the prime of his life, he was silenced by the act of another. But in the brief time in which he spoke and ran and led, His voice stirred the aspirations of millions of people. It was Harvey who said it best. You got to give them hope.